Harsha, that's a rough one. Into a new meta, of course. There has been some criticism in the community, but maybe first, let's see how this match played out in your mind. What are your initial thoughts about it?
I think I think so. I guess the match is still fresh, so I haven't had too much time to look back at it. We were just looking at it a few minutes ago, but I think that we probably just weren't able to execute our game plan the way we wanted to, and I think it got a little bit better towards the end of the series, and then also on Nepal, I don't think we played Nepal too badly. Uh, it was a bit unfortunate on Sanctum where we were 2% off rally, and if we had gotten that rally, then all of a sudden that map for sure is like a 2-0 in our favor. But I think that Kings Row definitely looked off, and I think that they just looked a lot better on Rialto as well. So I think we'll have to look back on it, but I don't know if it was necessarily a comp issue. I think that we just didn't play the way we wanted to.
Right. Now, for the viewers, this interview takes place like 30 minutes after the match. I assume you talked to the team. What did you talk about?
Um, so I actually just stepped out. We're actually still talking, but
Right.
I think that we just talked about the mistakes that we made and what needs to be cleaned up. We have 2 weeks of practice before our next match, so we have a lot of time to kind of like look at how this one went and fix those for the next time.
Right. Now, looking across social media, there were some questions specifically in regards to the BAP, because a lot of teams play a lot of Brig. Jake has also shown that he is a proficient Brig, yet you weren't playing that as much. You had some of it in the series, but most of the time it was spent on BAP. What was the idea behind that?
We know Atlanta likes to use like bunker comps regardless of the meta, so we used it just in a way to like punish the bunker comps, just because Brig doesn't get too much value in general when there's not that many divers on the enemy team. So if Atlanta played like bunker comps, that's why we tended to the BAP more.
Right. Makes sense. Now, of course, like a big point of discussion. I mean, Hawk even tweeted about it, saying like people call us delusional for not playing dive, but everyone else is delusional thinking they will beat APEC and dive mirrors anyway if you're not Dallas. Where do you land on this? Like, what do you think is the right approach to this meta, and then maybe also specifically for your team?
I think that the way this season has gone has kind of shown that meta doesn't meta is like not really the most important thing in the game. I think that everybody's just who's done well has just done well playing towards their strengths. And so I don't actually agree with this take, but I also see like why he said it. Like I think in Atlanta's case, they're gonna do best when they're playing their bunker stuff, right? So it makes sense for them to do that rather than to play something that they don't feel as comfortable on. I think for teams that think their dive will be better, then it makes sense to play dive rather than bunker. So it's just kind of a case by case basis. Even Dallas isn't even playing the same dive as the APAC teams, right? They play a lot of like the Lucio Ana stuff. APAC likes to play Zen Brig, so it's just really what I think your team feels most comfortable with.
Right now, looking at the hero pool as well, I guess you guys weren't too thrilled with that, seeing how especially Sigma and Lucio were banned out. Like, I mean, Piggy is probably the best Sigma in the league. Juby, of course, like very proficient on Lucio. What was your idea, or what were your thoughts when you saw these bans?
I think probably most of the league looked at that and saw that Shanghai literally won the last tournament playing none of those heroes. So, or I mean, so they played some Sigma, but to be fair, they switched back and forth with Sigma and Diva. So I think a lot of people probably looked at that and just said we can just use Shanghai's comp. So I think we kind of felt similarly to that in terms of like we were a really strong team at the ball comp at the beginning of the season when we played it a decent amount on like Volskaya and Dorado and maps like that. So that's kind of just why we tended towards it at this stage.
Right. How did scrims go in preparation for this week? Was it something like we heard from your team specifically in the past that like you were doing well in scrims, so there's really not much of a reason to change anything up if you're winning, right? You don't have any conflicting data points there. How did it go this week?
I think scrims in general were pretty fine. I don't recall like times where anything like stood out. So I think some days are different than others. You're gonna win more some days than you are on others, and you'll just have to find the reasons why you lose on days in particular where it's bad. So I think it wasn't anything special. Uh, we approached it very, I guess, similarly to other stages, and just kind of tried to refine. Like, I guess our focus was just refining the comp and like the play styles. So uh, I guess even times where scrims were hard, we found reasons and were able to adapt. So nothing too special, I would say.
Right. Was it always a given that if you guys play ball, Django would pick that up, or was there also discussion about Dreamer? Because I mean, tanks in the Overwatch League are a hot commodity. You guys picked up Dreamer. I guess there was some confusions about why you guys did that, and what is the role that Dreamer fills in your team?
So from our perspective, both are really talented players. Dreamer has a really high like English level, so uh, he and Jonggu have like, I would say, a bit different strengths, and we just play them uh, depending on that. And also, obviously, Dreamer has a bit of a communication advantage. So when we feel like that's necessary, then he can see play as well.
Right. There was an interesting point, and I think a lot of other professionals agreed with that. When we talked to Kalios, he basically said, like, it will be very hard for teams to catch up on playing ball, specifically because it's a hero with such a deep skill set and also requiring a lot of map knowledge, for instance. Do you think it's feasible for the North American region to try to play catch up with Shanghai on the ball comps?
I think that yeah, I definitely think like even in APAC, you've seen Shanghai losing this week with their ball comp. I don't think that it's some like insurpassable like advantage, and we've also had a lot of experience playing the ball comp. Like for example, I think people from our team have probably mentioned this before, but we scrimmed in APAC for probably a month and a half. During that time, we were basically one tricking ball comp, so like we have a lot of experience with it, and it's just like drawing upon that and then adding to it. We I don't feel like in particular like even though was the best team in the last two tournaments, like I don't think that it's a super hard like how do I describe it? I think that it is possible to like beat them on that comp. I don't think that they're just inherently the best at every single hero on that comp, if that makes sense. They definitely have an experience advantage, but it's just a game of catching up. Like they're gonna have an experience advantage if they one trick the comp for the whole season, you know. So that's just natural, and um, no matter what comp we play, we're not gonna make up for that, right? So I don't think that it's like a point that needs to be harped on. I do think that also one thing that makes it easier for other teams is that when Shanghai plays the ball comp, they're figuring out a lot of things on their own, and then you can take that from them, and then like it's faster for other teams to catch up to them rather
Right.
than them having to spend the same amount of time innovating, if that makes sense.
For sure, yeah. Now, this match was, unfortunately for you guys, like a direct contender for the top 3, which gets to skip play-ins.
Yeah.
Another team that is in contest for that position is coming up next, or in 2 weeks, I guess, with the Gladiators. How do you think that match might go? Do you think you will, like, of course, not giving away any strategies, but do you think it will require you to make changes, and how are you approaching that match?
I mean, given that we lost today, and also given that Gladiators played a lot of bunker stuff yesterday against Atlanta, and presumably will today, uh, I think we obviously just need to go in and refresh how we want to play against those kind of comps. And I think this was a good like a good kind of a knock for us to kind of know that we need to change how we deal with it. So we have 2 weeks, like 2 long weeks of preparation for sure, and that match is really important for us because I think basically if we win our next two matches, um it would take something crazy happening, like Gladiators or Atlanta winning it, or not Atlanta, Gladiators winning like a tournament for them to
Yeah.
surpass us. So I think we definitely will just be go into that like hyper focused and ready to win and take the top 3. That's really important for us.
Right. Now, of course, at the same time, like while doing well in Countdown Cup, if you guys were to go to a Y still, would pretty much ensure that you guys were top 3. But there's also an argument to be made that missing Countdown Cup gives you a competitive advantage because you get one more week to practice on the non-hero pools. So where do you fall on that? Like, do you think that that's a gamble that some teams are more willing to take that get that break week?
I think the good news about the format is that they have it so that there is like bonus points available, and that helps you gain qualification and like potentially can help you skip the first round or the plans rather. So I mean, I think that's incentive enough for teams to try. And obviously, we've seen Dallas and Shanghai look a bit weaker this go around, and they've already qualified for top, I guess 2 for Shanghai's case, top 3 for Dallas's case, their respective regions. So it makes sense for them, but I think for everybody else, I think the tournament is really important. And I'm also of the opinion that you do constantly want to be competing. Like just scrimming alone in like a meta that hasn't developed yet, it's not a huge advantage. I think the teams that come back from Hawaii will take a few days off and then they'll just jump in, and I think that they'll just catch up faster than it took teams to innovate, if that makes sense. Um, just because people are figuring out things about the meta while they're gone, so you can just take that from other teams. So I don't think it's a huge disadvantage. I think that obviously there's like wear and tear that comes with it, but I think that it's it's not too big of a disadvantage is my main point.
Right. Now, as you pointed out, Dallas and Shanghai are taking it a little bit slower. In many ways, it always felt like the Overwatch League is a marathon where maintenance of a roster is very, very difficult. Even though we're not playing that much this year, it's of course still that just means each game is worth more. So, in your mind, like, how tired are the Houston Outlaws at the moment?
I think everybody's still okay. Like obviously, every team is going to go through points where it just feels hard because season is long and it's like, um, even though this was a 4 month or 5 month season, it's pretty short. We all the teams started scrimming in January, December, so it's like it doesn't feel that way to all the teams. It still feels like a full season,
Hmm.
um, and I think just because of that, like everybody's still very motivated for playoffs and to potentially take a seed in Hawaii. So I think that everybody's going to go through this kind of situation, and I think everybody, like the teams that push through it the best, are the ones that will end up winning. So I don't think it's like unique to any one team, for example, and it's you just every team just has to, like there's no choice. You just have to adapt to it.
Right. Now, even though you guys lost, it still kind of looks like you will get direct qualification to playoffs, but most likely sort of looking also at the Florida series. The playoffs have been announced to be in Arlington. Is that a locational advantage for you guys? Do you even, like, how much travel is there? Is this something that you can do from your home base?
I believe that would be like a 4 hour drive, something like that. Uh, I don't know. I think probably for everybody it'll just be a travel day, but obviously for APAC they'll have to do the travel overseas, which I don't envy them. I guess NA teams had to deal with that at the tournaments, and APAC will have to deal with that coming to America for the playoffs. Um, but I think everybody will just end up taking the travel day as like a rest day, and then starting the next day they'll just go fully back into it. Um, Yeah, I don't think it's too big of an advantage just because I don't know if we're even going to be flying. We might just end up driving if we qualify. So yeah, nothing. Not even too sure about that. We haven't started thinking about that. We definitely
Sure.
need to lock in the top 3 first.
For sure. Now, what is, like, at this point, I mean, you guys are pretty high up in the standings. You're not directly qualified just yet, but you're getting closer to that point. Has this been a successful season for you guys from your point of view?
I think that it's you have to call it a successful season just because we're a winning team and we've been consistently a good team. We haven't been at the top yet though, and that definitely stings a little bit because we thought that there are multiple chances that we've had to be one of the teams that goes to Hawaii, for example, or to be one of the best teams at a meta. So that part is obviously hard, but I don't think that like Overwatch will always be a game where you just need to peak at the right. I guess esports in general, you just need to peak at the right time. So we still have hope that we can do that for playoffs. And you saw teams like Seoul, for example, last year be, I think they were like 50% in their win. I think they were like 12-12 or 11-13, something like that, and then they still ended up in the grand finals and took 2 maps off of Shock. So I think that it's just we just need to peak at the right time, basically.
Right. Now, a new experimental patch has been announced. I mean, the changes. Let's ask this: how influential do you think they will be towards the playoff meta so far, from what we've seen?
There was a Genji buff, a Wrecking Ball change. I don't recall what else there was. I think they changed Soldier a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure. I have to pull this up actually.
Right. Because it's theoretically in past seasons, right? Usually the big playoff patch hits before the last stage, which meant
Yes.
in some instances we at least had stage 4 to be sort of like the playoff patch, even though with hero pools it once again became a bit different. At this point in the season, we don't have that patch yet. We don't have the massive changes. So the question is, A, are they coming? Or B, if they're coming, what does that do towards the playoff meta, right?
I'm assuming this will probably end up being what the playoffs are played on. I don't mind not having giant changes because I don't like that added level of like RNG where it can just flip the standings and make them kind of like feel meaningless. I don't. I think that it's better if it's like smaller changes just to keep the game fresh, but also so it doesn't just completely throw out like team skill levels before the playoffs. So this looks pretty reasonable to me. I think just from a glance, like Genji will definitely be stronger because people played him somewhat, like not that much, but somewhat as like a counter pick, and maybe now he'll be a little bit better. Soldier might be better because he's seeing some play in this hero pool, but with Ash back, who knows if he'll even be used. So it looks like smaller changes, but definitely maybe somebody will figure out something that makes one character like over the top with these changes. That seems to be how it always goes.
For sure. Then we wish you good luck in the small break and in the preparation for the last week, and then of course potentially for the Countdown Camp. And thank you for the interview.
Thanks so much, Iska.